Hello, my loves, and welcome back to another episode of the Becoming Rich podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Monica. I am so freaking excited for this episode. I'm excited to have this conversation because this is just something that's so special to me. I think I'm going to make it two parts because I have so much to say and I want to make sure that I get it out properly in like proper sections because there's literally so much freaking information. I love more than anything, I love being a woman. But a part of my journey to self love, I started to realize just how much ancestral pain and collective conditioning there has been that has disconnected us from ourselves and our true power. The systems we live in right now literally have us fighting against our own natural flows. So that's why like these conversations are so important because the more educated that we are on our own bodies, like the more informed we are, the more compassion that we can hold. In the other episodes, I was talking about, being in like a receptive state, which is really being in our feminine. So the more connected we are with our feminine when it comes to the way that we are working, the way that we are living in our day-to-day lives, like a lot of that has to do with this part of ourselves, about our cycles. It's honoring this part of us. For me personally, my relationship with my uterus, my womb, my menstrual cycle has been such a big part of my womanhood, except it's the very thing that I hated. How can I fully claim to love myself if there's this such a big part of me that I hate? How can love and shame exist at the same time, especially when that shame is tied around the part of me that literally creates life? Out of all the episodes that I could create, this one feels the most important because the more that I understood myself, the better I could show up in the world and show up for myself. Okay, so we're gonna unpack it all, okay? So we're gonna start with where this shit comes from. So we grew up with this rhetoric around our periods being gross, shameful, embarrassing, unclean. Like it was this like scary thing that would happen to us and we would have to like hide it from everyone. Like why is it this big secret that women fucking bleed? I'm like I want to like scream. Why is it a fucking secret that we bleed? Like who gives a fuck? I feel like if anyone cares that much about a woman's body, you're obviously gay because like what are you afraid of? Like you're afraid of a vagina? Just literally grow up, literally you're a child. Let's move on from that. Like we literally would have to like hide away our tampons in like bags and like I feel like a part like I have like such a rebellious part of me, and so I feel like when like I started just like kind of like realizing things, I'm like I don't want to hide this like thing. I don't want this to be this like oh crazy thing that we can't talk about, and oh my god, like I want to like break free from that. So like I would say like I still do like on my story, like I'll talk about periods, I'll like write that I'm on my period or getting out of my period. Like I will try to have that conversation here and there. I will purposely walk around with a well, I don't use tampons anymore. Back then when I kind of started like realizing how much shame was attached to it, I wanted to like have the period wrapper in my hand and just the tampon wrapper, I mean, make sure everyone freaking knows that I'm on my period because literally who cares? Why is this a secret when this is like a known thing? Everyone knows that women get periods. The shame that we hold on to is absolutely ridiculous. And it's not, I don't want to hold that shame. If other people want to hold shame, fine, you hold that. Shame is such a low vibrational energy that I don't want to hold that. It is not mine anymore. The shame didn't come from nowhere, right? In ancient cultures, menstruation used to be seen as sacred. Our blood was seen as the source of life itself. Women were celebrated. Like imagine getting your period and having a party for it. Like that's what I'm going to do with my daughter. We're going to have a whole ass party. But like back in the day, like that's basically what would happen. It would be like you're finally like stepping into womanhood. And they also understood the relationship between women and the moon. So with the rise of patriarchy, women's bodies have been vilified. And I can get into the whole system of patriarchy, but it really is at the end of the day, it's a imbalance of our masculine and feminine. Like each one of us carries, no matter what our gender is, we both carry masculine and feminine energies. What we should be doing is honoring both parts of ourselves and finding that balance in between. Whereas our whole system right now is it honors the masculine parts. Some could say the unhealed masculine parts. Femininity at all is not celebrated. So because of this, we're seeing that menstruation is looked to be unclean. And then everything with like the modern conditioning, it's just like advertisements just like reinforce the idea that periods are something that need to be fixed, whether with like hygiene products or painkillers. It's just like, let's just slap a band-aid on it. So like, yes, even though it's like in our society right now, it goes so much deeper than that. It's ancestral. And the problem with that is that because this has happened for generations and generations of like programming, this stays in our body like energetically. This pain and shame has been passed on over and over again. And by reclaiming our cycles, we're not only healing ourselves and our own bodies, but we're breaking patterns and healing the future generations. Okay, so I want to talk about the energetics of it. So when I'm going to be talking about energetics, now, yes, I'm talking about the organ, okay? Like the organ itself is not just a physical organ, it's also an energy center. But even if you don't have that organ, that area itself where that organ is still holds that same energy. Now, the energy in that area, like your uterus, is the sacral center. The womb is the center for creation, intuition, our feminine power. And like, think about this, like the womb is literally like, I'm sorry, but we create life. Okay. I don't even want to get deep into who is God, like, because God is not either feminine or masculine. God is both. God is all. God is like every single emotion. God is everything. So God is non-binary. God is non-binary. Stop it. I'm so funny. But we literally create life. Like, doesn't God create things? Like, isn't he like, you know what I mean? So like, wouldn't it be a woman? Like, how does it make any sense that like our creator would be what women create? Women created the creator. Please, that doesn't make any sense. But I can't get into it. So it's like when you like just freaking realize your power, you guys, I have something in me that literally can create a human freaking being. Not even that, I can bring a soul into like a new soul onto earth. That is fucking mind blowing. Okay. But even if you're not able to create life, like even if like your womb isn't able to do that, because you know, all women are different, it is still, and even if you don't have a womb, that area still is where we can create our new ideas, our creativity. Like that's where it comes from. So even though you're not birthing a child, you're birthing new ideas, new projects, new dreams. That's like where it's all nurtured. Now, when this area is neglected and burdened by shame, which majority of us are because of the society that we have been born into and everything that I described from generational, ancestral, like this is literally what we were born into. You know, we will see an impact on our creativity, on our connection to ourselves. And so that's why the more information that we learn about ourselves, the more we can like rewire and rebuild this confidence within ourselves. I should have brought my book here so I could show you guys the book. But there's this one book. I'll link it. I'll actually link it like on the screen and I'll put it in the bio here for podcast because this book is freaking, it's the encyclopedia for everything to do with women. It is freaking incredible. So that's where I got a lot of the information. But there's two books that I actually am obsessed with, everything to do with women. I also just like I said, I love women so much that I listen to podcasts about like women giving birth and like everything to do with women's bodies. I'm just like so fascinated by. So I will link the two books. There's one Sacred Women book that I freaking, oh my God, that one is like way more on the spiritual side, whereas the other like Women Encyclopedia, that is more, you know, with doctors and science and all that stuff. Doctors and science, they talk about things. When it comes to our body, any kind of disease, sickness, illness, any kind of physical manifestation of that sort, is our body literally telling us that there's something wrong, that we're off in some kind of way. But the problem with our periods, with irregular periods, with really painful, like PMS, heavy bleeding, any kind of diseases in this area, it's not really like taken seriously. I feel like it's been normalized as like this is just like a part of what a period is, and we just have to like either deal with it or slap on some kind of medication to kind of like shut it up. But we're not listening to what our body is telling us. And that can be a sign of unprocessed trauma and emotions that are trapped in that area. Our cycles are also connected to our root chakra. So this area here, like we have our sacral and then we have our root. The root chakra represents our safety and grounding. If you want to like move the energy around, it's important that we're moving our bodies. So, any kind of yoga movement practice like helps to release that kind of energetic emotions. So when I was going through, understanding this, like understanding the shame that was attached to my period, I didn't want to hold that anymore. And I wanted to grow the connection with myself, and I want to grow my self-love, right? So a part of that journey, I want to share something that like a practice that I did a couple times that I did share before with like some of my close people. And I did get some weird feedback, and I want to just talk about that. What I did was I bled into a cup, like a Diva cup, which is what I use now because I don't want to put things up there that I don't know what they're made of, and I don't like. We've seen the news. We've seen some of the harmful chemicals that are in tampons. I started to use a Diva cup. So because that Diva cup is like up inside you, when you're taking that out, it is pure. It's just your menstrual blood, right? So I would take that out and I would put it in a little cup, and I would have a nice little brush, and I would brush it all over my face as a face mask. I got myself comfortable with seeing the blood, with feeling the blood, with smelling the blood. And I know that could be a lot for some people, but for me, that was a sort of practice to better connect myself with myself. I didn't want to feel the shame of this part of me. I just wanted to completely get rid of this, this idea that I'm gross. I don't want to think about myself that way. And so, when I did that, it was a loving practice. I posted a photo of me with the blood face mask, and I got a lot of like aggressive feedback, just thinking, oh my God, that's disgusting. That's gross. Like you're putting poo and shit on your face. Like it's sad just how disconnected we are from ourselves and from the truth. And that's just internalized misogyny. So I'm not in any way like trying to promote doing that. You do what feels right for you. Just for me at that time, I felt like that's where I was at in my like spiritual journey, that I wanted to have that practice. And I only did it a couple times. And now, like I wouldn't feel like I don't do it, but like I wouldn't feel any type of way if I was to do it again. Like it wouldn't make me feel odd. It wouldn't make me feel gross. It doesn't bother me. It's like when it comes to like our naked bodies. So, when you're younger and you're like starting to grow up and you go through puberty, like you feel very uncomfortable with your naked body. But the more that you're around and you see other women that are naked around you, like your close people, and the more time you spend naked with yourself and with other people, the less shame that you hold around your own naked body. And I've experienced that because like me and my girlfriends, like we would start changing in front of each other naturally. Me and my girlfriends, we'd be on vacation and go and take a shower together, and like just because we're sharing the space together, right? Do you know how freeing it is if we grew up and we were always naked? Like, look at kids. They don't know the difference of them being naked and being clothed. They don't know that like being naked is wrong or sexualized. Like they don't know that. It's something that like we get taught, right? So it's kind of like the same like concept with your blood. It's like the more that you you see it, you're around it, the more loving words that you use, like you're reprogramming your brain into like how you see that part of yourself. Now, let's talk about how our cycles are connected to the moon. Yes, woo woo girl, astrology lunatic, I get it, I get it. Scientific research has documented that the moon rules the flow of fluids. So you can understand, you can see the correlation between the moon and the tides and how that correlates, right? Like we can all agree on that. Since we're mostly made up of water, that means that our own individual body fluids are affected by the moon, meaning our menstrual cycles would be affected by the moon. And also our unconscious mind and dreams are also affected by the moon. If you talk to like people that work in the hospital, like they all know, it is like a known fact that the hospitals are like jam-packed on full moon. Is that fucking crazy? Like, actually, isn't that insane? Like, we are legitimately affected by the moon cycles. So the moon also has 28-day cycle, just like our periods. Us and the moon, we go like this. We are very deeply intertwined. In ancient times, like 6,000 years ago, like women were honored like when they were on their period. They would like all gather and like rest and reflect because they understood that there was a deeper spiritual connection also throughout that time. So our spiritual connection, like that veil is a lot thinner when we're on our periods. So whatever you want to call it, like whatever God source is to you, that connection with God is a lot closer. Like we're able to get more information from our intuition, from our higher self during that time. Rates of conception and ovulation, they peak higher around the full moon and the day before that, whereas a lot more women are bleeding during the new moon. Isn't that insane? So if you're into like the moon and manifestation, if you're into any of that, then you'll know that new moon like represents a like fresh beginning. It's like that's when the time that you're supposed to be manifesting. That's when you're like writing out all your goals and you're planning. So that represents when we're on our period. When we're on our period, this is when our ideas are being built. So you're kind of like, you know, reflecting and resting. Like that's what the whole new moon / menstrual phase is about. Whereas the full moon, which would be your ovulation and conception, that time all about lots of energy. You're at your peak. There's a lot of light and excitement and action. You're like going out and doing all the things that you had planned during the new moon. You'll see a lot of like hectic, chaotic things are happening during a full moon because you're actually like fulfilling your, you know, you're birthing like your actual ideas. So that connection just reminds us like how in sync we are with the natural world. And like at the end of the day, we're literally just mammals. Just understanding this about ourselves and knowing just how like it repeats over and over every like 28 days, like we go through the same cycle. We can just understand like our connection with ourselves, the cosmos, not feel bad about that. Like not feel bad about like wanting to rest when we're in our menstrual phase, not wanting to, you know, always be in our full moon energy every day of the year. That's not how we work. That's not how nature is. And why is it like okay for nature to be that way, but not for us? Like that is a part of who we are. We can't change it as much as we're trying to force ourselves into being on a man's cycle, which a man's cycle is 24 hours. So he has this same cycle that we have 28 hours. He has in a 24-hour period. That's how we're forced to be every single day. And it's us going literally against nature. So I just want to talk about some healing practices that I think can be really beneficial for you and just for you, your sisters, your mom, like all of us, because again, when I was going through this journey, I was really like trying to heal that area because it's attached, like those energetic centers are attached to so many things in your life that you might not even notice. But now that you're like being educated, like once you start educating yourself on like what those energies like mean, and you can kind of see like, damn, like I do feel like I have a block in this kind of area of my life. Maybe it's connected to this. I think like the first thing is to reframe the way that you see it and the words that you use around it. Stop using negative words to describe that part of you. Stop. Stop making jokes like, oh, like I actually can't do this with people. I'm like, oh, I got my period. Damn, I got my period. You guys, I had the most insane period of my freaking life about this last one. Bro, this last period, I gotta like get up for this. This last period, I want to like just share this story to kind of like maybe I need to put my sweater on. Hold on. It's getting so cold in here. Like, Jesus. Okay. So I need to share this story about my last period because holy shit, man. Like, okay, so when I first started my journey, at the very beginning, it was all about understanding like myself, my body, everything that I just kind of explained. I was like learning all of that, right? So once I like kind of learned and understood, I could then have compassion for myself to kind of be like, okay, like this is literally a part of who I am. This is how I run. It is not my fault. It is not something bad. It is literally just nature. It is a part of who I am, right? So it's like changing the wording around it first. Even if it's like I understand that people have uncomfortable and painful periods. I 100% understand that. And like that's not like you don't want to obviously have this like toxic positivity where you're just kind of like faking your emotions. You don't want to do that, but like just being cautious with like how much energy you put into negativity over positivity. Like what kind of perspective are you looking at the world in? And just like trying to shift it when you can, right? Like not everything needs to be so horrible and disastrous. So that's like number one. That's the first step, right? So I would then every time I would meditate, and I also started to do yoga around the same time. I started to be like consistent with doing yoga practices. And so when I would meditate in the morning, but then also at the very beginning of my yoga practice, I would sit in a meditation. And so I would sit there and I would put my hand on my womb, whether I would put one hand on my womb and one hand on my heart, or like both hands on my womb. And I would breathe in and I would envision I'm breathing in pink light into that center, and every breath in would be filling up that area with pink light, and then every breath out would be expelling like black light, like black energy. That's kind of what I would envision. I'm kind of like physically blowing out this like negativity, this disease, this shame, this guilt, this trauma, like any suppressed emotions. Like I'm literally like blowing it out. And also because at this time, like I would just started in my celibacy journey. So I stopped allowing other people into that area and to affect that area. It was me doing a cleansing. I was pretty much like trying to cleanse myself and really rebuild myself. Because we also like, I'll probably get into another episode about sexual energy transfers because that is also a thing, who you're allowing into yourself and like how much that affects your womb. So anyways, I would do that. That would be one of the practices that I would like breathe in this light energy. But then I would speak to myself. I would speak to my womb and I would, say sorry. I would say sorry for everything that it has gone through. And, the picking and the prodding and, we have to go for, going to our appointments and, what do you call their appointment? Pap tests, like all of that, like can be traumatic for a lot of people. Just kind of like healing that area that you've probably never spoken to. You just want to speak words of love because of how much it's been through. Truly, how much shit and hate that part of us has been through. Your womb is almost like your second brain, okay? So it's your connection to your intuition. So if you want direction in your life and you want to ask questions, that is somewhere that you can sit with and you can ask those questions. And the same way that you would do that, like trying to connect to your higher self, it's kind of the same way. You direct your energy into your womb and you can speak to your womb and you can find answers. Another healing practice is just connecting with your creativity, because again, that area is where creativity is nurtured. So anything like dancing or writing or singing, like anything in that world, like whatever your creative like avenue is, just dive into it. No limitations, no rules, and just play. We don't realize like how much is connected to disease, because when we see like, okay, we have a disease or we have like a painful period, you have this big pot of disease and you have like so many little things that are added into this mixture that creates this like disease, right? So maybe it's hateful words of affirmations, the shame, the guilt, if you've had any like sexual trauma in that area, all of that stores up and stays there. And that energy creates disease. You want to take it out one by one, right? You're taking out like, okay, I'm going to stop using these words. I want to release that. I don't want to speak this way. I want to release it, but also have compassion for myself for why I was speaking that way about myself. Like, this is just learned behavior. We can unlearn this, right? And just like apologize and say sorry and like have compassion and love for ourselves and just release it and let it go. So during this cycle, I noticed my energy dropped like it does. And I allowed myself to sit in that. So I did like I ended up having like 4 days off, like not 4 days off like from work, but just client wise. And so I gave myself that time. I was like, you know what? Screw it. Like I'm going to like sit on my couch all day. I'm going to get in my cozies. Also, like it doesn't help that it was like cold outside, you know? And I just like, I sat on my couch and literally, I want to say like rotted, but I didn't really like rot. Like I did the things that I felt like were productive for me during that time, which was rest and so much reflection. So much reflection. I had so many realizations that, oh my God, I don't even like know how to get into this. Like, I learned so many things about myself that honestly is like a little bit mind blowing. So it's like, how could something exist? How could a part of me exist always? And all of a sudden, I'm noticing it now. I've never noticed it before. And like, okay, let me give you an example. Like, I feel like, okay, this is what I've learned. I also use ChatGPT to help me like come to all these realizations. And I also use microdosing. Microdosing mushrooms has changed the fucking game. I'm serious. Microdosing and being in tune with yourself and your body. Holy shit. Okay. So this is when I was telling you that I finally like, I got answers. Like I asked the questions and I got answers. I was on my period, so that veil was a lot thinner, and I microdosed, and not that much, you guys, not that much, like 100 mgs. That's nothing. And I literally could feel me ask the questions, and the answers were just coming to me. They literally were just like coming to me. I was answering my own questions in my head is pretty much what it is. And then I understood it. I was like, oh, so that's what when people say like, oh, I got a download. Like, what do you mean you got a download? Like, I never understood that. Like, I just thought, I don't know, it just sounded weird to me, like a download. But now I get it. It's like, it's not like this, like, I don't know, book presented to you. Like, you get this like disc and you're like, oh, what is this new information that like randomly popped in my head? It's like, it's just the voice inside your head just answers things for you. I don't know, that just sounds so crazy. Okay, anyways, I do a lot of self-reflection. I am like very big on self-development. As you know, if you know me, you know that I'm very big on self-development. Obviously, this whole podcast is like self-development. But like through that, look at my life very, very deeply. Like I put it all on the table and I'm like, okay, this happened to me, that happened to me. And because like I'm, there's a lot of things that I want to shift and change and align better, for my future. Like I have a lot of goals. Like in order to reach certain goals, there's these unconscious, subconscious beliefs that I'm believing, right? And so in order to rewire them, I have to better understand myself. So I think about everything that I've ever been through as a kid and I, write it out and I'm like, okay, this happened to me. This happened to me. So then what could possibly have affected the way that I am today? And then ChatGPT helps me with all this. It'll tell me like, okay, this happened in your childhood. So that's probably why you are the way that you are in this kind of way, blah, blah, blah. And so I've been doing a lot of that. And like, because of that, like deep self-reflection of my entire life, I finally, for the first time, realize, and I realized this when I was on my period, I was like, I finally gave myself the validation that I feel like I've always seeked from everyone else around me. I feel like I've wanted people to see me and see what I've gone through and like get it. Like I just wanted so badly for people to like, I don't want to say feel sorry for me, but I wanted them to just like validate me. Okay. I just wanted people to validate me. And I wanted people to validate like what I had gone through. And I felt like no one did. You know, I felt like people just kind of acted like my childhood was like normal and okay. And like it just was what it was. And it's like then my entire life, I just like would feel bad about myself. And I had so much shame for like the 20-year-old version me, like me in my 20s and like who I was and even now the struggles that I have. Like I have so much like guilt and shame wrapped around that. And I finally gave myself that validation because at the end of the day, we don't need anyone else. We don't need anything from anyone else. We need to give that to ourselves. Whatever it is that you're seeking from someone else, you need to give it to yourself first. And only you need to give it to yourself. And I finally did that. And I was like, bro, yes, Rachel. Yes. Like you are the way that you are. You are a product of what had happened to you and what had gone on. Like what had happened to you back then was fucking hard. Feel that and like understand that and don't fucking feel sorry for that. Like you are the way that you are because of everything that happened to you. That is a fucking fact. Okay. Again, that is not something that I want to carry on in my future. That is just something that I needed to recognize so that I could let it go. I can't pretend to just be like, I am not my past. I am this. I want like my future is like who I want to be. It's like first, before I do that, I need to recognize what I had gone through. Okay. And I finally gave myself that when I was on my period. And I feel like I wouldn't have been able to give myself that any other time of the week because I finally just sat with myself and I sat with my emotions and I sat with my journal. I sat with the self-reflection. I was able to see that so much clearer. And I was like, holy, like my whole world, I was like, whoa, like I felt it release and we're physically releasing. Okay. When you're on your period, you are physically actually remove like it is you're releasing blood, like something is coming out of you. Okay, that is like physically what's happening, but you're emotionally going through that every single month. So when I would talk about like death and rebirth, like I talk about that on my story on Instagram sometimes, and I feel like people don't really like fully understand it, like us going through this like death and rebirth. It is a whole cycle of death and rebirth. That is what our period is. We are physically and emotionally releasing things, but you're not going to be doing that if you're blocking yourself from those opportunities of doing that, right? The more that you understand that this is what our bodies are doing, the more likely you are to actually allow yourself to sit with that and do it, you know, like, because I could like very well not have sat down and not have thought about anything. And I could have just been like, yeah, doing my job, like whatever the hell it is that you do, you know, having like fucking surface level conversations and just like not talking about things like true, deep rooted shit that is happening that needs to come up and needs to be released. Because we're always distracted. We're just always distracted and disconnected from ourselves. So we're not giving ourselves those opportunities, but it's not our fault because of our systems that have disconnected us and distracted us from the truth. So anywho, I feel like I finally like experienced like the beauty of like a woman's period and cycle and like how much it could benefit us. And so that's what I did. I was in this cocoon where I did so much self-reflection on like so much of my life. I just gave you like a tiny little thing that I kind of like had realized, but there was like a million freaking things that had happened during that time. It was like 4 or 5 days time, right? And I did all this like this self-reflection on myself, and I was physically releasing while I was like actually emotionally releasing all of this like shit that I kind of held on. And then I was planning on like, who is it that I want to be? Like, who do I want to be going forward? Because I'm not attached to this old version of me anymore. That is not who I am. I now understand. I have compassion. I love that part. It brought me to who I am today, but I don't need to hold on to that version anymore. So as soon as I had that realization, I'm like, wow, like that held me back for so long. Now that I'm releasing it, I want to be this. This is who my next version is. This is who I want to be. And I'm rewriting my life. I'm writing out my goals, new moon energy. I'm writing out what I'm going to be doing. And then when I'm getting out of that and you literally feel yourself, you feel your whole body's energetics shift. You all of a sudden feel more energy. You have more energy. You want to be in the spotlight. You want to talk. You want to share. You want to be out and like put in action with all of the plans that you had made during that time, right? And that's what the period I'm in right now. I'm like, go, go, go. I'm like planning my next event. I'm planning for my business. I'm planning my next free laser event, which is December 14th. Also, if you want to come to my event, it is going to be a holiday party and I'm so excited. And I have so much energy. I have so much built up energy that like, and just my personal life, not just like with work, but my personal life and who I want to be, who I want to show up to be. Like I can now show up 10 times fucking better because of what I had gone through during that time. And it literally, it's this rebirth, right? You know how like you see like the connection of like, just because I didn't give birth to a baby, right? I am giving birth to my creativity, to these new ideas, to these projects. Okay, I'm done. I'm like literally so hyped up. I'm so hyped up like talking about this because like I experienced it. Like I literally experienced, I feel like I started understanding all of this by like listening to podcasts, by reading books. I started to understand the connection between the moon, nature, us, our bodies. I started to understand the history. I started to understand everything. Holy shit. Like my mind was like blown. I was like, wow, like I can't believe that this is the truth. This is what's been happening. Like how come I only looked at my period as like something gross and like, oh my God, I have my rag. Now I'm like, I have my period. And I'm like, I can't wait. I'm like, so many like new things are going to come up. I'm like literally a fucking freak. Anyways, I'm getting hyped, you guys. I'm getting so fucking hyped. But now that I feel like I fully just experienced my like the most beautiful death and rebirth, like I'm going off right now in my follicular phase, and I can't wait for my next phase. Anyways, my video is going to die. So I need to end it off here. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. I'm not going to end off with a questionnaire because I feel like this is kind of going on and my camera's going to die. I love you so much. Thank you so much for watching, listening. I really hope that you have taken some kind of like inspiration, learned something. Share this to anyone that you think might need it. And I love you guys so much. And I can't wait to see you guys in the next episode. We're going to dive deep. I'm going to talk to you about the cycles and better get you to understand like what it is that you should do during that time, the foods that you should eat, everything. I'm going to be talking about, there's literally so many things to talk about. I love women. I love you guys so much. Okay. Have a good day. Have a good night. I love you. Bye.